Well, folks, Ron DeSantis has become the most disgusting piece of trash the Republican Party has to offer. And let's talk about it. Before we get into it, take a look at this video so you know what we're talking about. Yeah, look at that. Ron DeSantis' Nazis came in and pulled all the shelves off of all the books off the shelves in these children's schools. He's doing it across Florida until he can approve, his Nazis can approve what the children of Florida can read. Folks, this is beyond disgusting. This is beyond disgusting. And you have to ask yourself why. You know, and this isn't the only thing he's done. He banned African American Studies, which was an elective. You had to choose to take it. It was an elective course that was part of the AP program, the Advanced Placement Program, where kids could get college credit for studying classes in high school. He banned African American Studies in Florida. Why? Well, it's easy just to say, well, he's an abject racist. And you would be right. You would be right. He is a worthless racist. He is. But folks, that's not the end of the story. That is not the end of the story. Ron DeSantis is a political creature. He wants more than anything to be president of the United States. And he knows in his heart of hearts, the only votes he needs are racist, broken white people and his Cuban voting bloc in Florida. If he keeps those, he stays in power. And he's going to keep doing shit like this. But the question is, why? Why? It's beyond the fact that he's an abject racist. A big part of it is that he is a political creature. He knows what he needs to do to maintain his base and what will not hurt him with his base. You know, the racists in Florida love this. The racists across the country love this. And what Ron DeSantis has learned from watching Trump, he is incredibly dangerous because he has watched Trump and he's smarter than Trump. He watched Trump use this exact tactic. They do something horrific that does not hurt them with their base to distract us from things that are much worse that we should be paying attention to. You know, and much worse may be the wrong way to put it, because what's worse than just this abject racism? It doesn't get much worse, but it doesn't hurt him with his base. His base love it. They love it when he does racist, horrific things. That's who they are. And the religious zealots in Florida, which Lord knows there's a lot of those, they love banning books. They think the only book anybody needs to read is the Bible. You know, they love this. So he's doing this not hurting himself, but what is he distracting from? And that's what we need to be looking at, folks. That's what we need to be looking at to get the whole picture. What is he afraid of that he's willing to do something this horrible and make himself this polarizing? Because this destroys him with independents. Independents don't like this trash. They don't like this type of garbage. They just don't. So ask yourself, what is it? Ian. Hurricane Ian. Just like the failures of Greg Abbott, which he has not been able to purge himself from here in Texas with the grid failures and the ridiculousness of going on there. Ron DeSantis knows he has to avoid the label of being a failed governor. And he has very much failed the state of Florida. They supposedly invested billions of dollars in a hurricane-proof grid in Florida, which failed utterly. There were 2.7 million people that lost power in Florida due to Ian. This persisted for months. There were people without power. The rebuilding of Ian is still going on. It is still to this day an abject failure. And folks, he's pulling political nonsense, trying to distract from it. You know, they're having press conferences claiming a victory that the Volunteer Florida program raised $60 million. Wow, that sounds like a lot of money. $60 million to rebuild after Ian. Folks, Ian did $65 billion in damage. $60 million is 1/1000th of what they need. So what have they done? They've done this. Take a look at this. On their own website. And if you don't know what Volunteer Florida is, it is Florida's disaster response program. Yeah, a volunteer program. That was idiocy that I'll get into in a minute. It says call FEMA first. It says call FEMA first on Volunteer Florida. You know, folks, that is the disaster. None of the people that have been appointed by the governor, which they are, the people that run Volunteer Florida, they're appointed by the governor, are qualified to do this job. You remember Heck of a Job, Brownie? The failures there? That is what DeSantis is trying to run away from. He's trying to keep Ian from turning into his Katrina. And folks, it is. It is. You know, they're begging people to please contact FEMA. Joe, please come save us here in Florida. And because we're Democrats, we're doing it. We've got FEMA down there busting their ass. But the state isn't. It's just an abject failure. And for you folks that don't know, Volunteer Florida started as a program. Democrats actually started it way back in the 90s to increase volunteerism in the state to make Florida a better place. Well, because Republicans hate government, they decided, well, we'll get rid of our disaster response system and we'll turn it over to this volunteer organization. And it's been a boondoggle for Republicans since. For the last quarter century, Republicans have used Volunteer Florida to employ their spouses, just like Ron DeSantis did. He put Casey DeSantis in there as a fundraiser for you know, in the trust fund that funds the Volunteer Florida Fund. You know, this is an abject disaster. And that is what DeSantis is trying to avoid. That is what DeSantis is trying to avoid, folks, is because there hasn't been a corporate media story on what's going on in Florida since October. Folks, this is how bad it is. Hurricane Ian was in September. They didn't place the first state emergency shelter in Florida till December 5th. They got the first temporary housing trailer put in place December 5th. Now imagine that. From mid-September, when the hurricane hits, all the way to December, it takes them just to get a damn trailer put out. And nobody in the mainstream media is writing any stories about it. There haven't been any major news stories about Hurricane Ian in Florida since October. Since October. The only stories you get are these ridiculous fundraising stories so that Ron DeSantis can try to avoid the stink of putting his wife in charge of fundraising for Volunteer Florida and its abject failure to raise funds. You know, they're having these announcements saying, oh yeah, we raised $60 million. Well, you need $65 billion. You're failing miserably. On an epic proportion, you're failing miserably. And then you look at the rest of it. When you go beyond Ian, you look at the rest of Florida. Housing costs are skyrocketing. Skyrocketing, folks. It's getting more and more difficult for the people of Florida just to live. So Ron DeSantis took a cue from Donald Trump. I mean, hell, he even goes so much as, if you watch him talk, he does the Trump hands thing now when he talks. He emulates him so much. So he's learned, do something horrific, like ban African American studies, which was an elective course, because, you know, God knows you don't want people learning history. Or ripping books off library shelves to please your religious zealots. Do horrific stuff like that, and people will watch. And people will not pay attention to how badly you're failing your state. And the corporate media doesn't want you to see it. They want Ron DeSantis. They want to make some drama out of the 2024 election when they know that an incumbent president like Joe Biden, who's doing as well as he is, will not lose a re-election. They lose all of their election coverage if it's not this big drama thing. So they have to protect Ron DeSantis. Well, folks, we here in the independent media, we don't do that. We just look at what's going on. And that's it, folks. That's what's going on in Florida. That's why Ron DeSantis got involved in shipping in, immigrants, so he could get his stink on it with the racists, so that he could label himself to be just as horrible as Greg Abbott when it comes to racism and abusing people. I love you, folks. But if you want us to keep continuing to bring you this information, I need you to hit the subscribe button. If you don't know about the subscribe button, it's really simple. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't let us track you or any of that nonsense. All it does is when you come to YouTube, it shows you our content. That's what subscribing means. So please hit the subscribe button. And if you can, support us. Support us. I have my merchandise. You're going to see a commercial after this. Check out the guys' Patreon page. Meidas Media is the fastest growing independent news source in the country. If you want information like this, please check it out. Love you, folks. This is Old Texas Paul out. Y'all have a wonderful day.
The best part of waking up? MAGA Tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA Tears mug available now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.